Commence primary ignition.
This is where the fun begins.
What is up, all of you Ugnaughts and Jawas out there, and welcome back to yet again another episode of Mando Talk. This is a special one. It's our once in a month get together with myself, your host Caleb Keller, and DJ Foster at Rebel Scum Texan on Twitter. What's up, DJ? How's it going? Glad to have you back.
I'm glad to be here. Nothing insane is going on. I'll admit, nothing crazy, nothing like super spectacular.
Okay.
I'm just living my life, living my own little DJ Rebel Scum Texan life and all that. I will say this today, right as of this day, my daughter is 9 months old.
Hey, there you go.
And so apparently, yeah, it is. And apparently on the internet, the interwebs, wherever, I think mostly on TikTok, people are calling this, like, when you call your baby's 9 months old, they call it in and out day, because you're out of the womb as long as you were in the womb.
Hey, okay, that makes sense.
So people take their kids to In-N-Out Burger.
Okay, did you do that?
I'm doing that right after this.
Well, there you go. There you go.
It's one of those little kind of, but my wife wants to do it, and I'm not mad about it. So I'm like, I like In-N-Out, and we got one right down the street, so it's perfect.
There you go. Well, that sounds like a fantastic evening. We've got a fantastic evening for you planned. If you're listening during the evening, if you're listening in the morning, then hey, fantastic. You got a great morning coming in. We are currently, this episode is available on all airwaves. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Help us get bigger on whatever platform you prefer to get your podcasts. I will say we have officially safely crossed the 300 subscribers on YouTube. We're now at the 315 mark, I believe, last I checked. So again, help us get to the next goal of 400. And hey, maybe we just skip that goal and go all the way straight to 500. That would be something special, but we're only going to get there by delivering great content, which we always plan to do, great Star Wars content. And we're also going to get there by your help. So spread the news, share a link, do all the great things to show us some love. But without further ado, I'm ready to get into it, DJ. We've got Tales of the Jedi spoiler review and breakdown. That's what's on deck for this podcast episode. I know there's been some Star Wars news running amok lately as far as the future of Star Wars films, things like that. I will say I did like a reaction YouTube short on our YouTube channel, and then DJ did a Razor Crest rundown where we kind of dove deep into that news. So we'll kind of just shelf that, I guess, on this podcast, because I really want to get to Tales of the Jedi, and I'll just make that plug of, if you want to hear our takes on that news piece, go check out those two YouTube exclusives. So without further ado, Tales of the Jedi spoiler review and breakdown. DJ delivered his personal takeaways and notes with this one. So DJ has the honors to lead us through Tales of the Jedi. Take it away, DJ.
It started a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That's actually true. Yeah, no, I wish that is how this started with I don't know why every Star Wars story doesn't start with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, I guess so far it's just been Kenobi.
Well,
right? And
Tales of the Jedi didn't.
And Kenobi started with it, but also maybe Clone Wars season 7 potentially.
Clone Wars, the final 3 big episodes, covering Order 66, that did. Yeah, but no Clone Wars episode ever started with a long time ago, because it had the life lesson captions that kind of went along with the story. So it's not like, it's been a thing for a long time, 2008. So it's not that big a deal, but it's like, go ahead and put it in there. Fans love it. That's not, I don't know. Is that a hot take? I don't know. It might be. Let us know if that's a hot take. Comment down below or tweet at us, do those things. But let's go into it. You called this the spoiler review and breakdown. And that's what I had, a full blown breakdown. I'm going to do this just a smidge different. I know that there's a linear 1 through 6 episodes here.
Okay.
But let's focus on characters.
Ooh, okay.
Let's do this instead. So let's go character by character. Let's start with Ahsoka Tano.
Okay.
And her episodes were episode 1, 1, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
I was very surprised by that decision because I went into it thinking, okay, Ahsoka's episode 1, so 1 through 3 is going to be Ahsoka, 4 through 6 is going to be Dooku. But I like the way they did it.
I love the way they did it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That they must have done it chronologically, had to have.
And the only thing that's thrown me there a little bit, and we'll get into this in a minute when we get into the second Ahsoka episode. There's some timeline things that threw me off a little bit. Not a big problem, but you know, we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start with her. This is her origin story, plain and simple. Yeah. This is where she comes from. She's a Togruta. She comes from this very small tribe in this very Canadian looking forest, very Alaskan looking forest. It's just it's beautiful. It looks actually what I would imagine the forest on Ilum / Starkiller Base look like when there's not snow, if that's even possible. And it's beautiful. Just that, and the animation, oh my goodness. Let's just talk about that for 1 second. Incredible. And Bad Batch delivered that last year, but I mean, it still looks incredible. And the fact that they're capitalizing on it with the technology we have today is awesome.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go into this. So Ahsoka, origin story, blah, blah, blah. Already said that. Now, she's born. Her dad's excited as he should be. Caleb, you're not too far away from officially becoming a dad.
On baby watch. We're just a couple of weeks away, man.
Remember when we were on baby
at the
watch?
max?
Remember when we were on baby watch for me during Book of Boba?
That was intense.
I watched the Mandalorian episode of Book of Boba Fett in the hospital. That's where I watched that in the hospital. I was nervous as all get out. That doesn't go away, by the way. But going forward, Ahsoka's dad's excited. It's all good. And after 1 year of being on Earth, her first birthday, her mom takes her on a hunting expedition that kind of encapsulates a tribal tradition. And I, as somebody who has gone hunting and has grown up around hunters, I appreciated that a lot. I thought that was awesome, beautiful. But thereupon on the hunt, they shoot what looks like a cross between a white-tailed deer and a kangaroo. And that's when the giant saber-toothed tiger comes out of nowhere. Once the tiger shows up, her mom has this awesome one-on-one match with the tiger, and villagers can hear her struggle and the roaring of the tiger, and they come to her aid and essentially run off the tiger. But the tiger is somehow wise enough to pick up Ahsoka and run off with her in her mouth, but like in that like mama cub kind of way where they get you from behind the neck, not like I'm destroying you right now way. So from there, Ahsoka actually goes back to the den of this tiger and uses the Force basically to convince the tiger to take her back to her village, and that's how she survives. And it's at that point, the matriarch of this village, this old Togruta woman who I would love to know more about her. She was very interesting to me. Kind of
Gantika.
Like is that her name?
I believe so. Yeah, she was fantastic.
Okay. Loved that character so much. But was very, very fascinated with her. Just, I don't know. I think about like Native American tribes and how the hierarchy of that works. That was very reminiscent of that to me. But she's at the village. She's the wise person there in the village. And she basically says the only way that Ahsoka could have survived this was by her being a Jedi. Or a child of the Force, as Rebels puts it. So that's essentially Ahsoka's first story, first episode. Caleb, what are your thoughts overall on that?
I just thought overall that this was a very beautiful origin story. I loved the family dynamic, obviously, with my personal life fixing to change drastically. Kind of connecting to that story was pretty cool. I loved the mom kind of teaching her like all of these core values that she ends up just applying to her life. And you can just see it early on in this moment, like when they're walking through the forest for the first time and they're just, and her mom is just saying this dialogue to Ahsoka to just basically value the life that surrounds you. And as they're making their way through the forest, and like you mentioned earlier, it's just absolutely stunning when that occurs. And there was also one other moment that I absolutely loved too. And that was the quote, "You must face death, Ahsoka. Do not fear it." And again, just wisdom coming from the mother, passing on to her daughter, Ahsoka. Absolutely loved it. Stunning. kept up. Like, I was worried when I saw the timing of it, but man, the story that they told in these small little shorts, and that goes for all of these episodes, they use every second to tell just a beautiful story. Life and death was fantastic, in my opinion.
I'm the same way, and hearing these life lessons that kind of got sprinkled in there, I don't know how a 1-year-old understands all of that. I think that was more for the viewer than obviously for Ahsoka, but it was the perfect connection, I think, to see where her story was going. Fun little tidbit on that first episode before we go to the second Ahsoka episode is that Janina Gavankar, who played Iden Versio in Battlefront 2, actually voiced Ahsoka's mother. So it's nice to see Star Wars using, I'll borrow a phrase, all parts of the buffalo, where I guess a spoiler for Andor, which if you haven't watched Andor, I'm going to spoil the most recent episode real quick, but also plug Caleb ran down.
There you
go. He's run down every episode of Andor, nearly all of them on his own, except for episode 5, The Axe Forgets, because me, you, and Zach did that one together.
Yeah.
But if you haven't listened to those, go check it out. Caleb's doing awesome on that, flying solo while this Wookiee is out. But anyway,
episode 8 breakdown's probably coming soon. This Tales of the Jedi is coming before, I think. Coming before. Fair. So stay tuned for the episode 8 breakdown for Andor.
And I was sitting here thinking you already did. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe I've got my weeks mixed up because I still thought this was episode 7 of Andor.
I did too. I struggled with the labeling of Andor this week for some reason.
Regardless of that, both this week we see different Star Wars actors taking on different roles in other Star Wars projects this week. Andy Serkis is back in Andor, and now we've got Janina Gavankar here in Tales of the Jedi, and I'm not going to tell you what Andy Serkis plays because you should just go watch the episode.
You should, if you haven't already.
Yeah, and then listen to Kayla's breakdown. That is forthcoming. However,
there you go.
I needed to throw that in there before we moved on because I loved that little tidbit. She had 3 lines of dialogue, or not 3, it's probably more like 5 or 6, but I mean, still, it was awesome to see her. There. I mean,
other than Ahsoka's presence, her mother, I believe her name was Navti or something like that.
Yeah.
Her mother leads the Nakil. No. Nakil's the father. Pavti is the mother.
Okay.
Pavti is the mother. Regardless. Anyway, she was kind of carrying the episode. But I mean, obviously Ahsoka's the main focus because we know who Ahsoka Tano is. But yeah, the mother was carrying this thing. So yeah, it was a great role for her to come back and have some fun in Star Wars.
Yeah, and I love that in Clone Wars we get to see, or was it Rebels, where it was Clone Wars, where Plo Koon picks her up and takes her to the temple, and then everything after that. It's just, I love the connection there. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen Clone Wars, but you've seen Tales of the Jedi, what are you doing? But
Zach Horvath falls under that bubble.
Oh, it's true. Even on Facebook earlier in that Facebook group I run, someone said, "Do I need to watch Clone Wars and Rebels to see this show?" And I said, "Yes for Ahsoka, but not for Dooku." Dooku, you can fill in the gaps from 1, 2, and 3 if you watch the Dooku ones.
Yeah.
But all right, well, Ahsoka, just awesome stuff there. Now let's go to episode 5, titled "Practice Makes Perfect." Very simple review from my end on this.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a reoccurring thing. Here's kind of how it starts. Ahsoka is put in a training room there at the temple where she's being overseen by Yoda and Plo Koon and Anakin. I think Mace Windu was there. Also, Depa Billaba and baby Caleb Doom were there too, which is awesome.
That was a big takeaway of mine. Caleb Doom,
yeah,
baby.
I loved that. And what's interesting is that there are issues of canon coming out because of this episode and Caleb Doom's appearance. And there's a guy on Twitter. He works for Lucasfilm, and I actually retweeted him earlier. But his name is, I think, Matt Martin, one of the Lucasfilm Story Group guys. No, I apologize. It wasn't Matt Martin. He was a part of what I was reading, but Kevin Scott specifically and Matt Martin both go and on their Twitters and explain the canon side of things. So if you're wondering where the canon things are, go check them out on Twitter. They'll help you out. But as far as that goes, she's there in the room. She's doing her training with some remote droids, kind of like we saw Luke using in episode 4. Although these kind of look like TIE fighters. I thought that was fun. And she's just basically blasting and I'm not blasting. She's deflecting.
Deflecting.
Yes, thank you. The blaster bolts there. And then Anakin's like, this is a stupid drill. I'm gonna come up with one better. So he gets the clones and he prematurely executes Order 66, but but with stun guns, you know, with stun, it was set to stun, and she learned the hard way how to basically train against, you know, a live human being, or I guess not always a human being, but you know, a real person instead of a droid. And she gets stunned over and over and over again. And I love at one point Rex, he says something like, oh, it took us 5 minutes to actually get you this time instead of like 20 seconds, you know? So she got better as the Clone War went on. And I love this because it's backstory to what's taking place in Clone Wars. We may never see this in Clone Wars, but we know it's happening, you know, now. I love that Anakin was still training, because I've always wondered, when do they have time for training? You know, the war can't be all the training.
Yeah.
And here it is. It in a way it is for Ahsoka, you know, even at this point still, but it's great to see that. And then that leads us to the final moment really of this episode, is Rex and Ahsoka walking down a corridor of a Star Destroyer, a clone Venator class, you know, ship. And it's walking her into Jesse in the 501st from Clone Wars season 7. And they're kind of like playing the game where she's detained or she's been made prisoner, and they have a quick moment of dialogue, and then it goes into Clone Wars. It's just great. I loved that. So
that was fantastic.
Go ahead. Just share whatever else you have on it.
I have to admit, as soon as episode 5 finished, I hopped over to the Clone Wars finale to see where that scene would fall into play in that episode. I didn't even go to episode 6 of Tales of the Jedi next. I was like, okay, I remember Rex walking Ahsoka out there at gunpoint, but I don't think they actually showed them talking about it before they walked through, and they didn't. Like, they were up at the top, like viewing down on them. Ahsoka comes up with a plan, and then next thing you know, Rex is walking Ahsoka out there. So this scene that we get in Tales of the Jedi is their dialogue they're talking about before they walk out, which was absolutely fantastic. So that was definitely one of my big takeaways. Going back though, for me personally, I have to admit, until Anakin came to the center of the floor and Ahsoka called her master, I thought that this was a potential test of the council allowing her to join the Jedi way. And this was going to be Ahsoka's introduction to Anakin. And so when it was revealed that, no, they had already known each other, I was kind of bummed, because I was like, wait, we still haven't seen their meeting necessarily, have we?
Well, the Clone Wars movie is where they meet for the first time.
Okay, then I just need to go back and watch. It's been a long time since I watched that.
My understanding of what the scene looked like initially was that Ahsoka was training in front of potential masters, and Anakin was just going to be there because why fair. Not, you know? Because in Clone Wars movie, he's so reluctant to take her on as a Padawan. It's like 35 minutes into the movie before he's like, okay, I'll be your master. And I thought that was the thing. And I thought that was indicative of Obi-Wan's hairstyle.
Yeah.
Which is where my issues of canon come into play. So somewhere between the first year of the war and the second year of the war, Obi-Wan grew his hair out to a mullet one more time and then had to cut it off. Because it's the only thing that makes sense canonically. You know, if she's already with Anakin as a Padawan, they've already met on Christophsis, which was the Clone Wars movie, and two episodes that take place canonically before it. And, you know, they already know one another, and Obi-Wan's got a short haircut. So it's like, what's going on here? What are you doing? All I can
see what you mean.
He got a haircut later is my point.
Yeah.
You know, and so
that
was my issue of canon.
Okay.
You know,
podcast listeners, he's using the air quotes.
Yes. Air quotes, big time. It's not a big deal though. So whatever.
Fair enough. Well, those were my two big takeaways, where I was kind of in that internal debate, like, is this like Anakin becoming her master? Is this their meetup? Obviously it wasn't. They had already known. And then obviously the big takeaway of the direct connection to the Clone Wars finale. Fantastic. Great stuff.
My other problem though, is I felt like that direct connection to the Clone Wars finale was more or less a deleted scene they just dropped in there. I didn't
feel that way. I mean, but I can see where you're coming from.
I might be in the minority there. If I got to change my light to red, let me know. I'll do so. But, you know, for our video listeners, for a long time, it's always been this running joke of if one of us decides to go dark side with a point, put the red light on. We haven't done that in a long time, though.
No, we haven't. We haven't.
I'll do it in a minute. I'll do it when we talk about Dooku. How about that?
Hey, there you go.
All right, so that brings us right up to episode 6, which was the one that had me in the Revenge of the Sith Clone War finale feels. I mean, it put me right in the feels. I mean, listen, I grew up just absolutely adoring the prequels. If you're a longtime listener of Mando Talk, you know that. And we love the prequels here, both of us, me and Caleb. Heck, I sent you a Jar Jar Binks action figure that I found because I'm like, Caleb's going to love this. And
still right here on the desk, baby.
There you go. Mine's kind of stored away right now. There it is. It's blurry, but it's there.
Yeah, the blur effect. Man, the podcast listeners are like, what the heck? Get on with the bullet points because we can't see any of this.
Just fast forward to this part in the video and you'll be fine.
I still can't get it anyway.
It does not want to show Jar Jar.
Jar Jar's like, no shot. I'm not coming out.
Which, did you see what Ahmad Best said on Twitter?
Yeah, apparently there's
he's got his one-man show coming to tell his story of what happened. I can't.
Come on,
I'm excited about it.
I'll take it.
I hope it's live and he travels. He won't, but I hope he does. But now let's get into episode 6, Resolve. It starts off at Padme Amidala's funeral. Bail Organa and Mon Mothma are present, which was not shown in Revenge of the Sith. So extra details. I love that. Also at that funeral, Jar Jar Binks and Boss Nass. So let's never forget them. But coming back to this, Bail notices Ahsoka there, and he's kind of like, you shouldn't have risked this. You shouldn't have risked coming here for this. And she's like, she's my friend, and I was really hoping she would say that she was her sister because she had made the comparison previously that Anakin was like her brother. And so I wanted to see that happen. Not the end of the world that it didn't, but it would have been nice. But anyway, she's there. He basically goes and tries to essentially say, look, if you need anything, reach out. And he gives her this like device, a communication device, a homing beacon, whatever, to try to contact him if she ever needs something in the event that she needs his help. And really, she calls on him not for herself, but for others, which is very Jedi of her. I think personally. And then she goes on and she starts working as a farmer. Basically, she's harvesting hay or weed or hay. I call them hay bales. That's what
me too.
I don't know if you're not from Texas or Tennessee, maybe you call it something different. I don't know. I doubt it. I've never heard anybody else call it that, but regardless, they're hauling hay, and that'll be the most Texas thing I say all day. And what happens is there's this kid who stacks the hay bales too high and it falls over.
Come on, kid.
And it nearly kills his sister, but Ahsoka, being the Jedi she is, uses the Force. And
why you got to stack the hay bales so high? What the heck, man?
I don't know. And it's such an odd, like, there's nothing supporting.
Come on, dude.
It just
clearly they've done this before. Have you not learned? You are way too old to be stacking the hay bales that high.
Absolutely. That's like level 1 hay bale stacking. Like,
absolutely.
Every country kid who's also a Star Wars fan is like, stupid.
Idiot.
He's just you idiot. Come on. But he doesn't even seem like he's upset about it either. That's the worst part.
Yeah.
He's just like, whatever. I'm like, you almost killed your sister, you little jerk, but whatever. Anyway, enough about him. He's the villain really of this episode, actually.
We'll
come back to him in just a second. But he comes over and he helps his sister up, and I guess their dad, an older guy, comes over and kind of helps him up. I'm assuming it's the dad.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And so now what happens thereafter is this girl realizes that Ahsoka saved her with the Force, and she's like, oh, well, you're clearly a Jedi. And and the weird thing I've always loved about Star Wars is that even if you're not a master, everybody outside of the order refers to you as Master Jedi. And I love that running theme. And so this girl refers to her as Master Jedi, which Ahsoka is a Master Jedi. I don't care what anybody says. But even at this point, she almost killed Darth Maul. She's a master. It's fine. That's how Obi-Wan made it. So there's that. So they have this conversation, and she tries to deny the fact that she's a Jedi, and the girl kind of keeps like pushing it. Well, the next day, her and the girl take the hay to market, try to sell it. On the way out, the brother uses the phrase, "May the Force be with you," because he overheard them talking the night
again
before.
Let me just say, this guy's a tool.
A jerk, yeah. And here's the thing, it's the same thing that we saw with Frick in Obi-Wan. is he's like, oh, we need a little bit of order around here. And this kid's like, oh, you're rewarded if you support the Empire. And we'll come back to that in a moment. But anyway, the boy believes that he will be rewarded, as I just said, by outing Ahsoka. So they go to market, they return, and the village has been burned. Several residents are dead, also some droids. And there is an Inquisitor voiced by Clancy Brown, aka Mr. Krabs. And
cool.
Yeah, did you know that?
Mm-mm.
He's also the Davaronian in episode 7 of season 1 of Mandalorian.
I think we've talked about that, but yeah.
He's also Ryder from the final season of Rebels as well.
Cool.
The guy with the white beard, and he's somebody else. Oh, he's Savage Opress. So there's that. He's been around a while. Anyway, I know way too much about Star Wars.
That's why we've got a podcast, man. It's acceptable here.
It's true. So thank you for listening. Subscribe, like, review, all that fun stuff.
Rate, yeah.
Rate, not review. Rate. Okay.
Do it all.
Do everything. Just, you know what? Click it. Click it or ticket. All right. That doesn't apply here. Oh well. So they return from the market. Village is burned. There's an Inquisitor, and the boy's like, "See, I told you they'd return. I told you." And he's like, "That's right, and you will be rewarded." He goes to do the saber slashy through his neck and try to kill him, and Ahsoka uses the Force to prevent that from happening. Which, sidebar, really quick, it shows the importance of your connection to the Force as a Jedi over your ability to use a lightsaber. And it's kind of a nice little parallel to Attack of the Clones with Dooku and Yoda, I think, but still, it's just a really cool moment there. So she essentially fights him, but doesn't really fight. She kind of, I don't know, she just like ducks and weaves. She goes, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee on the Inquisitor, and essentially takes his lightsaber from him, uses it to cut him down, and he's dead. And that's it. That's what happens to the Inquisitor. Next thing you know, she calls up Bail Organa, puts the people on the ship, they fly off. Pretty quick, and when it's all said and done, I probably went into more details on this than I did any other episode review for this. But anyway, great episode. I mean, it's great to see that Ahsoka goes from here to whatever else. I imagine that if a Tales of the Jedi season 2 happens, which Lucasfilm, if you're listening, please do that for literally everybody. It's the greatest story that's been on TV in a while. Tales of the Jedi. And that's what happens. That's how the season ends. That's how Ahsoka's story ends for now. Caleb, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought episode 6, Resolve, was fantastic as well. I do have to say, we've already touched on the brother being the ultimate villain of this episode for sure. The fight, the battle with the Inquisitor,
yes,
totally made me think of Obi-Wan and Darth Maul and Rebels. Like, it was so quick. And I have to admit, though, this time I really wish I had spent more time with it. Like, I was looking forward to seeing Ahsoka and this Inquisitor like duke it out a little bit more, but it makes sense. I mean, I don't think she's carrying her sabers at the moment. That might be like a novel answer to this Ahsoka novel that we're going to get to eventually. So maybe that's why. One of the things that stood out to me toward the end, though, is as far as like Bail and the communication device and all that stuff, is I'm assuming Fulcrum is coming soon.
Yeah, I would say so.
Really cool connection. Love that. Love the connections to Rebels and all the things that we know about Ahsoka. Great episode. But yeah, what do you know regarding like this episode and maybe just the entire arc of Ahsoka connecting to that Ahsoka novel that admittedly does have Twitter talking a lot the past couple of days?
It does. And everything in this episode, from what I read the novel, this is pre-pandemic, so it's been a while since I read it. Actually, I think I read it at the beginning of the pandemic. So early 2019, I read it. I was at home. I wasn't doing anything. Yeah. My brother had the book. He loves Ahsoka. Y'all have met him. His name's Gavin. He's awesome. Shout out Gavin. He works at Chick-fil-A now. Gavin. There's that. So I'm about to get me some
God's
free
chicken.
waffle fries. It is God's chicken. It's the Lord's. It's pre-blessed. But anyway, he shared the book with me. I read it in like a week, and so I don't remember everything in it, but I do know that it just nothing really here lines up exactly with what happened in that book from my memory. It's similar. I mean, the similarities are striking. I'll give you that. She does find refuge on a farm planet. The difference is that the Empire is more of a threat in the novel than in this episode. Like, yeah, the Empire's a threat, but they're like really present in the novel. And that's the difference here, is that they're not like super present here.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. Also, characters actually had names in the book. Duh, because it's a book. Here, like the brother and the sister, they're literally named Village Brother and Village Sister. Like,
yeah,
name them Jill and Jack at least. But they just Village Brother, Village Sister. Okay, that may be kind of a little like they just didn't feel like it deal, and that's fine. That's not necessary for the story. But anyway, I don't. This isn't to me a disruption of canon, and especially in the Ahsoka novel, we see where she gets her white lightsabers from in the novel. And if you haven't read the novel, I'll spoil it real quick just for the sake of speeding up the timeline here. She does fight an Inquisitor. She does kill the Inquisitor, and a new post Disney canon says that in order to make a lightsaber blade red, you have to bleed the crystal. Well, there is a way to purify the crystal. You bleed it the other way, basically, and doesn't matter what happens, the crystal becomes white at that point. So the white blades are a result of redeeming the crystal of an Inquisitor's blade. So and she uses that as her two blades, and so her two blades actually used to be the spinny helicopter blade that we see in Rebels. So that's this Inquisitor then. No, it's not. It's not this Inquisitor. No, it's not, because she didn't take the lightsabers with her here. Well, is it possible that she picked it up? I mean, it's possible, but I mean, if you're a Jedi on the run, I mean, Obi-Wan buried his in the desert, Yeah. I don't blame Ahsoka for not. If she doesn't take them, whatever, that may be just my personal take on it. That's fine. I'm going to see it that way until otherwise stated. Well, and I mean, I value your opinion on that because I haven't read the Ahsoka novel, but I guess from me just seeing Tales of the Jedi only, I could definitely see her picking that up and taking it with her. It would also maybe potentially be bad for her to leave it behind without hiding it. So, who knows? Yeah, and this could create a new discussion on canon, because when a quick little sidebar again, that when they built the Disney park Galaxy's Edge, they made that canon, and it supposed to take place between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. But now they've got Mando, Boba Fett, and Fennec Shand walking around. So they're backing off of that, and that's the right decision in my opinion. I think that is, but that therein creates an issue in storytelling. Are these novels not canon anymore? And what's canon? What's the actual timeline here? And for me, who 2015, they're like, boom, this is it from now on. Okay, awesome. What are we doing? I'm not mad. I just don't understand. Just because this is fresh on my mind. I know you don't watch or engage with Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, or anything like that. Right. But I feel like this could connect to this conversation. House of the Dragon is based off of a novel that George R.R. Martin wrote. That novel, though, is viewed as like history through the eyes of someone, not necessarily absolute fact. So Game of Thrones is handling it as the novels are someone else, is someone's perspective of their history. But then once it's shown on screen, that's the absolute truth of actually what happened. So what's written on paper is like an interpretation of the history in Westeros. But then once you see it on screen, that's the real story of that interpretation. So I could see, not saying that that's what Star Wars needs to do or should do. I could just see them like viewing it that way moving forward. Possibly. Yeah. I don't see, that's not really a problem. I think that the hardcore canon fanboys and fangirls out there will throw a hissy fit, and absolutely understandably. And 100%, you're dedicating all those hours reading and dissecting all of that information. 1000%. And I would understand that. Yeah. And I don't have an issue, if you get upset over that at all. For me right now, I'm just going with what I feel like is what actually is happening here. And if that's the case, that means Ahsoka has killed 2 Inquisitors, I think. I don't think she killed any in Rebels. They didn't do a lot of killing in Rebels, if we're being real honest. Yeah. Either Rebels way, is still great. It's fantastic. It's my Nacho Libre connection. Caleb, fun fact, Caleb does not like Nacho Libre. I do not. Loser. All right. Let's focus on, honestly, my favorite part. 100%. I do think that the Dooku arc was the strongest
of the two. Ahsoka was great, but Dooku was phenomenal.
Oh, it was. I actually, because here's the thing with Ahsoka, and I think this goes without saying. We know where Ahsoka's going and where she ends up. Okay. The difference here with Dooku is that we don't know a lot about his story.
Yep.
Outside of that one audio drama novel, Dooku Jedi Lost, which I've listened to one time. I did admittedly fall asleep during some of it, but that's on me. I was working a morning shift, going to sleep early, and I decided I can listen to this while I fall asleep and not miss a beat. Yeah. Whatever. So, and then the free version of that expired on Amazon, and now I don't have it anymore. I did, however, buy the actual hard copy. I'm going to go through it eventually. I definitely have to now. But let's go with Dooku. Okay, we start off him as Master Dooku, beardless, looks like young Christopher Lee in animation. Love it. He's with his Padawan, Qui-Gon Jinn, beardless, looking great. Voiced by, I believe, the son of Liam Neeson.
That is correct.
If I'm not, okay, I don't know his name.
Me either, but I know that that's a fact.
There you go. Okay. And he looks awesome, and there's some good stuff. It's nice to see Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber in animation. Love it. But anyway, he's there. They fly to a world in which the senator's son of this world is being held captive by the people who live there. They investigate the town and find that all citizens of this particular village partook in the kidnapping of the senator's son. Also, every time I say senator's son, I think of Creedence Clearwater Revival. It ain't me. I ain't no senator's son. Like every time.
There you go.
Even writing the notes, I was like, okay, I got to listen to the song before the day's over, whatever. So they kidnap the kid. They go, the villagers take Qui-Gon and Dooku to where this boy is being held in what's basically a barn where they do know how to stack hay bales, by the way, and or what little hay they actually have access to. And the boy's there. He's fine. He's been taken well care of by the captors. And at pretty much that exact same moment, the senator arrives with armed guards to take his son back. And the reason he knows that his son's being held there is because another villager tipped him off, and they basically traded that information for, was it food or money? I couldn't really, it was food. Okay.
Yeah.
So, that just shows you the corruption right there in this senator, right there. So there is a skirmish that then takes place between the guards and Dooku. Now, they tried to talk it out, didn't really work. That was evident in the trailer too. And they have a nice little shootout. Villagers are being shot down. A few of the guards are shot down. There's some wounded. There's one guy who definitely dies. He falls out of the top side of the barn, and he doesn't make it. And, they're all scared as the fight kind of continues. Well, everything kind of ceases. The senator starts talking, and that's when Dooku's like, I've had enough. Force choke.
Yep.
Qui-Gon is just like, what is going on? And he's like, Master, stop. He force pushes Qui-Gon into the stratosphere. Not really, just backwards. And next thing you know, he's like going up hard. He's like, your corruption ends right now. And I honestly think that, and by the way, he lets go of him.
Corruption like yours must be eradicated. Something like that.
The most Dooku sounding thing you've ever heard. And, Qui-Gon's able to talk him down, and he lets go of him. And then it pretty much, the senator goes back with the son. Senator says to the people, I will not allow this to continue. And I'm like, okay, you're more knowledgeable than your own dad. You've got a future here. And I loved that. I was like, okay, you're going to end the corruption. I want to see more. It's weird. I don't usually dive into those kind of stories in Star Wars, but I loved it. I was like, this kid's like, no, not happening anymore. They ride off into the sunset, as it were. And that's where this episode ends. Caleb, your thoughts?
Okay, well, I got a different interpretation of the ending, so this will be a good discussion.
Do you?
When Dooku, so at the end, Dooku tells Qui-Gon that his actions saved many lives. Qui-Gon's a much wiser man than he is. All this great stuff. It's fantastic. But Dooku, great red, by the way. We're on Dooku, so now DJ's got the red going on. Dooku, when he says something, he's like wondering if any meaningful change will come of these events. Ooh. He says a quote like that. Right. I interpreted this as eventually this son who's all, woo, I'm going to do everything for my people. He's going to get corrupt like his dad. I mean, that's what happens with that. That's why all of this falls apart. That's why Dooku ends up turning to the dark side, because he sees all the flaws behind the Republic and all this stuff like that. So I did not see the situation for this. Maybe I'm just like being negative, super negative, but I didn't see the situation for these citizens getting any better, because I mean, I felt that it was going to, until Dooku was like, I wonder if anything meaningful is actually going to come of all the events that happened today, which made me think, okay, probably not with how we know things go down. I mean, because obviously eventually the Empire's coming to town, years away, but
probably, yeah.
Eventually they're coming to town, if there's even a town left at that point. So I don't see many great moments for the citizens left over here. But yes, it was fantastic to see Qui-Gon Jinn, young Qui-Gon Jinn, seeing the connection of him and his master Dooku connect here. That was fantastic. I love this. It was a good setup. It was a good setup to understand Dooku's character. And yes, it played, once we saw all three of his episodes, the arc, it played well in setting up why he makes the ultimate decision to turn to the dark side.
It's like seeds of the dark side being planted is kind of how I looked at it. I loved watching that. And I also need to say that Jedi Dooku's look and fit, like his garbs, his robe, however you want to look at it, I love the way it looks. It's different than we've seen him wear before. Usually it's like he's got this big one smock thing. I love seeing him in traditional robes, and I'm just like, okay, I can't wait to see Jedi Dooku cosplayers get a hold of that. I think that'll be great. I think it'll be a lot of fun to see. Okay. All right. Now let's move into the next part of his story. Fast forward a little bit into the future. Qui-Gon is no longer his Padawan. He is lone wolfing it as a Jedi Master, except he does have Mace Windu along for the ride with him on this one. They do go to a familiar planet that we've seen in Bad Batch known as Raxus to investigate the death of a Jedi. Did you catch that or no?
I didn't catch Raxus.
I think it was mentioned, Raxus, was it not?
Okay, yeah. Raxus Secundus. Is that the same thing?
I assumed it was.
Okay, it might be. It might be like in the same, sector or whatever.
Yeah. But
I'm thinking of sector because the ISB, Andor's got me all going with sections of the galaxy.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's great. Well, if it's not Raxus, it's some other planet, but that doesn't matter. Okay,
it's Raxus something. Raxus something.
All right.
Yeah, it's in the Raxus sector. That's canon from Mando Talk.
There you go. We had a good canon discussion today. I like it. So they arrive there to, like I said, pick up the body of a deceased Jedi Master. But Dooku kind of is like, okay, let's investigate this. And Mace Windu's like, that was not what we were ordered to do, which is great to see how he's living by this code so strictly.
Yeah.
And how it pertains to Attack of the Clones. The whole prequel trilogy and all of Clone. Just now it's like you watch this and like, oh, you were always a jerk. Like, you were kind of always.
That's my takeaway.
My opinion of Mace Windu has been soiled to a certain degree.
They're like tripling down on it in animation too. Like if you just watch the prequels, you're like, okay, Mace Windu's cool. Maybe he's a little bit of a jerk, but he's ultimately cool. When you watch animation, that guy sucks.
Yeah, no, he's a jerk, man. He hates Anakin. He doesn't. He's a Boy Scout. That's what he is. He's a Boy Scout. All right.
Hey, if you're a Boy Scout, we appreciate you listening. We love you.
I mean, I appreciate your skills. All right, but don't. I'm using the term as if like Tony Stark was saying it to Captain America.
Okay, I got you.
Quit being a boy, like that. Like quit. Come, loosen up. Be Samuel L. Jackson. Don't be Mace Windu. It's kind of where I'm at here. Anyway. That's what I'm yelling a lot. I'm sorry. So here we are. They're doing their thing and they go to investigate and they hook up with a senator. He takes them to the location where the Jedi was killed. Through some quick little sleuthing and detective work, Mace Windu and Dooku also realize that there's no way this Jedi could have been gunned down in the way that it's been described to them. And they're like, okay, it had to be somebody. And that's when the senator's like, they put me up to it. They're the ones that killed her. And then he gets capped right in the back. So he's dead. So now the whole situation is turned and they now have to go into aggressive negotiations. And that is when we discover that these guards who were with the senator are actually a part of a kind of a political extremist group who are trying to change the nature of the political structure there on this Raxus planet. and they're kind of going about it the wrong way, obviously, but it further plants seeds of doubt in Dooku, which is kind of the point of the story. Well, they fight the guards, and they leave behind basically one who explains what's going on. At that point, Dooku and Mace return to Coruscant with the body of the Jedi to the Jedi Temple. There's a funeral at that point, and after that funeral, which features a lot of fun characters that you should know from the prequels, Kieda-Mundi, I think Plo Koon's in the background, a couple of new people kind of sprinkled there, and then randoms. Yoda's
and
there.
Then the dead Jedi that we saw in Kenobi. I still don't remember his name.
In
the tube.
Terrace Anube.
There you go. Yeah,
he was in one of the Ahsoka episodes too. We just didn't mention.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the guy in the training room who.
Okay, yeah. Good call.
We just didn't mention that, but I don't know why I remember his name. That's such a weird name, and I feel like I shouldn't remember it. But
someone's got to do it.
Yeah, might as well be me, everybody. I'll take the L for you. But anyway, they go back. They have the funeral. Now Dooku finds out that Windu is taking the seat of the Jedi who they went to investigate the death of, that individual seat on the council. And so Dooku is understandably upset about this. I view it as he feels he's been passed over for that position on the council. And, how or why he was passed over, I think is kind of up for debate. But, that's what takes place. He's understandably mad. That's where it ends. Caleb, what are your thoughts on the episode as a whole?
Well, the episode as a whole was great as far as, again, so the previous episode was diving into Dooku and Qui-Gon's relationship. This one really showed the massive difference in Dooku and Mace Windu. And yeah, the biggest of takeaways from that episode, obviously the lightsaber stuff was fantastic. Like Dooku was really like getting into it with this one. It's always great to see the purple lightsaber of Mace Windu ignited, but really the big takeaway is, of course, those last moments where Mace is going to be presented with Master Catri's, I think that was the Jedi name, Master Catri's council seat.
Sounds right.
And I even took the time to personally jot down Mace's direct response whenever Dooku asked if this was planned before the mission. For some reason, I just felt like I needed to type this quote down. So I'll just go ahead and read it since I took the time to do that. He said, "I was as surprised as you are now. Dooku, you and I both were together when the mission was assigned. I stuck to the mission. You decided to interfere in a way that led to a senator's death. I will speak to the council on your behalf." So this connects back to something we were talking about for me personally, that Mace Windu ultimately,
he's a jerk.
He's a jerk. And the things he says lead to so many issues. For Dooku falling to the dark side, for Anakin falling to the dark side. Ultimately, all of this is on Mace Windu's shoulders. I don't think so. Not really, but partially.
Well, an oversight from the council. They go with the man who is deemed a political idealist in Attack of the Clones to Mace Windu, the Boy Scout, as we said a minute ago. And it messes up the Force works in weird ways, as we know, and that's just how Star Wars is. There's always that weird X factor, in the back of your mind. It's like, okay, this is the Force working things out.
Yeah.
And that's what's taking place here. So, it sucks that it's like that, but it's like, oh, you see, it's right there. How could you be so, and it's just not taking place. Now, something I wanted to mention that I totally forgot to mention from the previous episode that focused on Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
Homie ain't no snitch. Mace Windu is, though. And I'm gonna tell you what I mean by that, though. And I just kind of referenced it a little bit. Qui-Gon doesn't snitch on Dooku, and what he almost tried to kill somebody with his bare hands through the Force. Okay. But then we get to Attack of the Clones, and they're having this conversation with Amidala in the Chancellor's office. And he's like, Count Dooku couldn't assassinate anybody. It's not in his character. And I'm like, Qui-Gon said, I ain't talking about nothing. And so they went 15, 20 years or more. Probably more, because Qui-Gon's young and he's like 60 in Phantom Menace. So we're talking a long time. Qui-Gon was like, I'm just going to forget I saw anything.
Yeah.
Just keeps it tight lit. And I think that still plays into this episode where, Mace Windu, he didn't see, I think Dooku was wise enough to not commit a crime in front of another master. But he's like, my Padawan, whatever. He ain't gonna say nothing. I'm the one training him, and Qui-Gon's like, that's right. I tight lip, done, So I love that there's this neat little connection there to Attack of the Clones in one way or another. But anyway, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt too much there.
No, perfectly fine. Overall, great episode. It is the perfect middle chapter again of this 3-episode arc for Dooku and seeing his eventual fall to the dark side for sure.
Speaking of that fall to the dark side, we get to see exactly more or less how that takes place in the 4th episode and final episode of this arc, titled
Best episode.
It is the
best episode.
The Sith Lord. It is.
Sorry, I kept cutting you off there. I'm gonna say it again. The best episode.
It is, and you should cut me off and say so that way people know. But it is because of so many reasons. Now you could look at this title 2 ways: is the Sith Lord in referencing Palpatine, or is it referencing Dooku? I choose to believe it's referencing Dooku.
100%. That's what I believe as well. But I could see easily both interpretations for sure.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. Oh, go ahead.
Could it reference Darth Maul?
I can see
because they use that phrase, the Sith Lord and Tatooine. You never know.
It's like
another layer.
It's a passing of the torch type thing. I love this though. Like, and here's our first point. Dooku has this passcode that belonged to Sifo Dyas. He goes into the Jedi archives and erases the whereabouts of Kamino.
Yep.
This is cool because at this moment, Darth Maul is out there doing Darth Maul stuff. There's no Darth Tyrannus. He's just an agent of Sidious. He's not a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
But it's going that way. It's not much different than Asajj Ventress and Dooku's relationship all throughout the Clone Wars. It's really not.
Yeah, agreed.
So here at this point, he's not the Sith Lord, and he's just an agent, at this point. He's this undercover guy. So I thought that was beautifully performed, and that's a weird way to say that because it's all animation, but I think everybody knows what I mean. So they go from this moment, we find that we are now embedded within the story of the Phantom Menace, and it's revealed that Qui-Gon Jinn believes to have encountered a Sith Lord on Tatooine, Darth Maul, as you mentioned. It's great to see Madame Jocasta Nu. I love Jocasta Nu. It's just cool to see her. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I've always speculated that she was aware of Dooku going in there and messing with the stuff. That this episode of Tales of the Jedi makes that clear that that's not the case.
Yeah.
That was always just a fun theory of mine that somehow she knew something went down.
she didn't have a clue, or she ain't no snitch, but I don't think she knew. I don't think
so either.
What I love about this episode so much is how interconnected it is to Phantom Menace, because while Dooku's walking around the Jedi Temple, keep in mind, baby Anakin, Jake Lloyd, is up in the council chambers or hanging out with Padme, elsewhere on the planet. And then we run into Qui-Gon almost immediately. Dooku and Yaddle, of all people, have this conversation with Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon should know that there's something off about his master, but has no recollection of what's going on at all. Yep. But at the same time, let's consider Qui-Gon's thoughts. He's thinking about Anakin. He might be the chosen one. He's thinking about the prophecy, all these different stuff, where Dooku's over here like, well, I've got my own thing going on, and loved that there was this connection where he says, hey, I hope one day I can meet Obi-Wan. Great connection to Attack of the Clones. Love that. But they have this conversation. That's when Yaddle actually realizes something's off about Dooku. So she actually follows Dooku as he departs from the temple, goes to the secret location where Dooku and Sidious meet up in Attack of the Clones. It's also featured a couple times in the Clone Wars, which is great. And that's where she overhears Dooku and Sidious talking. And I don't use Palpatine here because nobody knows it's Palpatine. And on top of that, everybody is departing for Naboo at this point.
Yep.
And so keep in mind who's at the funeral. Palpatine. So it makes sense that this happens before the funeral, but it's still during the time of Phantom Menace.
Yep.
So he obviously does what he does with Dooku. Dooku stays behind, which I know why he had to stay behind. He wasn't in the movie, so he can't be there. But for the sake of the story, I also get why he's not going. He's like, I can't handle it. But it just shows that the dark side takes away the things you love most. And for him, that's Qui-Gon. Also in Dooku Jedi Lost, Dooku kills his sister, but that's something else to worry about another day. Huh. Yeah, it's dark stuff.
Interesting.
Dark stuff, man. So yeah, Dooku has a sister, by the way. So there's that. Now, from that point, Yaddle's like, hey, you don't have, Yaddle interferes. She is in the presence of the entire Sith Order at this point. The first Jedi to be in the presence of all of the Sith at once in probably a millennium, a full 1,000 years. And she's like, let's end it now. Me and you, we got this. We can take care of business right here, right now. And he's like, it's too late. She's like, no, it's not. She goes, but at worst, he would have just left the order, you know, if everything changed there, but it didn't, obviously he falls to the dark side. So Yaddle, they fight, and it's a great lightsaber fight.
It's pretty solid. Very solid.
Yeah, it's no Ahsoka versus Maul.
No, but it's good. Very good.
In the pantheon of great lightsaber battles, Yaddle versus Dooku, going down in history, I think.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, even before they start to fight, though, Dooku and Sidious discuss their plans for war and the clones, and they mentioned Kamino, and I can't remember if they mentioned Sifo-Dyas. I don't think. Yeah, they do actually here. And Yaddle overhears all of it, tries to convince, doesn't work. They fight, and she gets caught in this gigantic metal door, and Dooku uses the Force, and boom, the door comes down. But Yaddle's Yaddle. She's a member of the High Council. She holds the door up, comes out exhausted, and that's when Dooku strikes her down. Ooh. And I love this a dichotomy of like the angel and the devil on your shoulder kind of thing happening here between Sidious and Yaddle and Dooku. It's just so cool to see that going on. So all that ends right there. Dooku then pledges himself to the allegiance as Sith Lord, and knowing that Ian McDermott voiced Sidious here is fantastic. Not to mention Bryce Dallas Howard voices Yaddle. I couldn't even tell it was her, which was awesome.
Yeah, that was good.
And the big, debate online, aside from the Ahsoka canon things, is why doesn't Yaddle talk backwards like Yoda?
Yeah.
Which means Yoda had a stroke or something. I don't know. I just
well, maybe it's something that comes of age, potentially, is an idea that I have. Maybe Yaddle, I don't know Yaddle's full backstory. Maybe she isn't as old as Yoda at the moment. That's just an idea that I have. Also, though, maybe it's just, like you said, Yoda being weird. But I also have a personal opinion that it could be potentially setting up the fact that Grogu doesn't have to sound like Yoda whenever they do finally reveal his voice. Sure. That way people in the fan community are used to seeing this species, whatever it is, speaking just normal without, speaking backwards, whatever. That way, whenever Grogu potentially does that in the future, we're not like, oh, that's new. That breaks canon or something like that.
Yeah.
That's my current thoughts. Did you find out how old Yaddle is?
Yeah, she was 483 years old at the time of her death. So maybe like you reach 500 and you're like, now I'm going to talk.
Who comes up with that number? Their species, it's just in their blood that whenever they hit 500, all of a sudden they start talking backwards, and everybody in their species freaks out. They're like, "Oh, you made it! Congratulations!"
But even then, their species is so limited to 3 people. That we know of. Yeah. I love all the breakdown stuff on Yaddle. I mean, I'm actually looking at Wikipedia right now. Shout out to a previous episode we did where we actually had Wikipedia on the show. So go check that out. That was a lot of fun. But anyway, Yaddle's page is actually a lot longer than I thought it would be.
Man, I need to dive in then.
Lots of legend stuff. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I also once read that's George Lucas's least favorite thing to talk about is Yaddle.
Huh. Not Mara Jade.
Well, I guess that's a close second. Yeah. But anyway, that's how this ends. That's Tales of the Jedi. I mean, that's everything we got there.
Some things, story goes. Just real quickly with the Sith Lord that I really loved was Dooku visiting the tree post Qui-Gon's death, figuring that out because he took Qui-Gon there when he was little. That was a really cool moment. Really hits the heartstrings a little bit. Let's see anything else there. I love the quote here of Dooku's quote to Palpatine that connects back to the previous episodes as far as why he's doing the things that he does. Like Palpatine says, remember your cause, remember why you're doing all of this. He says the Jedi blindly serve a corrupt Senate that fails the Republic it represents. You can totally 1000% see why Dooku has that viewpoint now based off of the two previous episodes. And I also liked Dooku straight up confronting Palpatine there for a minute regarding allowing Maul to kill Qui-Gon. He's like, look, after everything that I've done for you, you have Maul kill the one person in this Jedi Council that I care about the most. And so you can see, like you talked about earlier, the angel and devil on his shoulder. Like he's got the two sides going back and forward here. He's got reason to commit to Palpatine, but he's also got reason to leave and do what Yaddle's asking him to do. Great character moments. And I loved this episode. I loved everything about it. At this moment, I knew I was going to text my brother Jacob because he's a massive Dooku fan regardless. But it was at this moment, because this was episode 4, so there were still 2 more episodes to watch. But it was at this moment where I had to hit pause. I pulled up my phone and I said, Jacob, you have to immediately watch Tales of the Jedi as soon as possible, because your love for Dooku and everything you've always wondered about is right here, dude. And he, of course, Jacob, like fashion, I still haven't heard back from him. Maybe he's seen it, maybe he hasn't. Who knows? But man, this episode and Tales of the Jedi overall was absolutely fantastic. Like I said earlier when we first started, the episodes were definitely shorter, but they use every single minute second to tell a beautiful, stunning, moving story with these 2 characters in the prequels, in Clone Wars, that we've just come to love. And obviously we get to dive in with Ahsoka more because we know Dooku's not around anymore. But I don't know. Is there any questions about Dooku at this point? What do you think?
Man, I don't know if there's any questions left to ask because so many things have been answered. You know, we got Jedi Lost, we've got Clone Wars, we've got Attack of the Clones. I mean, Phantom Menace is there to provide the Qui-Gon connection. And then this, I really, there might be some things here and there to tell, little things with Qui-Gon maybe, but I think if they return to Dooku at all in a future Tales of the Jedi series, I hope there's a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th season of this. I want so many more, and do 4. If it's like 4 seasons, do 20 episodes. I don't care. I'll watch them. But all of that to say, if they return to Dooku, it will be because they're telling a Qui-Gon Jinn story.
Yeah. I could also see a Mace Windu angle as well.
And Mace Windu's story has been told quite well in the comics, his connection to his master, and it kind of does show how he gets to be the council. I don't know all of it well enough to really comment on it, but it's good stuff. I know that much. So I just
thought of maybe an idea for Dooku in a season 2 is going back further and seeing how Yoda's training to him maybe makes him the way that he becomes once we see him in Tales of the Jedi and Attack of the Clones.
I've been clamoring. And Clone Wars. I've been clamoring for something like this for so long. Ever since I read Claudia Gray's Master and Apprentice novel. If you know the show, you know I just sing the praises of that book. But I've been clamoring for a Master and Apprentice series where it tells these different stories. And what I want so badly is for the Dooku Qui-Gon story. That's one of the reasons I was so excited for Tales of the Jedi. And I'm realizing that
feel satisfied with that. Now that we got Tales of the Jedi.
I do. I just want more. I just want more. Yeah. I would love to see. I would love to see that 20, 30 year gap between episode 2 of Tales of the Jedi and Phantom Menace, because, or even what we see in Dooku's story here. So I want more, and I know I shouldn't. quoting Revenge of the Sith.
Nice.
I mean, yeah, but I do want more because I like the character of Count Dooku. I've never been a Count Dooku fan ever. I've never cared about him. I thought he always caused problems with just these weird stories from Attack of the Clones mostly.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, at this point, I'm like, I get it.
Great. Yeah.
Everybody, I mean, your brother, people who have sang the praises, I use that phrase again, of Count Dooku for all these years. I get it. I'm on board, and
Mm-hmm.
if he sticks around for, a long time and they continue to come back to the character for a little bit, I'm fine with it. And I'm actually exhausted from Ahsoka.
And that was a question that I had as we were going was, are we hitting Ahsoka fatigue? I kind of think we are animation wise. I'm still very much so excited to see what's going on with her live action because that's just a story we don't know. Like, we don't know Ahsoka's ending, but all of this prequel diving into Ahsoka during the early stages of the rebellion and during her training with the Clone Wars, like, we've visited that, and I feel like I'm good with her animation wise, but live action, that energy and that passion and that excitement's still there for me personally.
Yeah, and it's going to be a completely different story. It's a continuation, and I love that. I'm glad Ashley Eckstein came back for Tales of the Jedi. I know there was a little bit of like tension, I guess, after the Rosario Dawson announcement a couple years ago. I feel like that's, I
guess, overall disappointment, but I would understand that. She put a lot of effort into voicing Ahsoka for so long.
Absolutely. And I understand that. And there's only a handful of exceptions to that rule of doing both. Liam Neeson and Katie Sackhoff being two of them. Not very many others have gotten to do both. And I think that's like reserved for a special type of situation. Now, I'm not saying Ahsoka is not special, but I mean, she doesn't look like her. Okay. Rosario Dawson does. And that's an old debate. I realize that, but I'm with you. I think I'm okay if I don't ever see her in animation again, unless it's like, I don't know. I mean, before Clone Wars, maybe, but, or maybe a fulcrum thing in animation, but that's about it. I mean, I don't think I need anything else.
So just as far as the future of Tales of the Jedi go, I think it was, first of all, it was absolutely brilliant for them to call this series Tales of the Jedi, because that is such a broad stroke. And here's my pitch for a season 2. Kylo Ren and Luke freaking Skywalker. Give it to me. Give it to me. Or let me say Ben Solo and Luke Skywalker. Use this title of Tales of the Jedi that's not restricting you to just the prequel Clone Wars time period, and go and tell that story that so many people have been dying to hear. And this is not a shot to Dooku or Qui-Gon Jinn or anything like that. I haven't been, at least, and I don't feel like the fan base, at least, has been clamoring for that Dooku arc that we got as much as people have been talking about Luke Skywalker's training of Ben Solo. I'm so glad that we got that Dooku thing, but if you really want Tales of the Jedi to take off, there's a story that's available for you. I don't know if that's season 2, but eventually I think this is the perfect show to explore that.
Yeah,
I think, at least.
I'll take that a step further and say this is how that story should go. It should be 3 parts. First part, Ben Solo gets dropped off with Luke. And Leia, we get Leia and we get Han in animation. I want to make that very clear, in animation.
Yeah, 100%.
One episode focusing on Luke and Ben's training. That's when Snoke comes in. 3rd episode,
the fall,
the fall, and the burning of the temple. That's
it. And you only need 15 to 18 minutes for each episode, just like you did here.
Obviously,
keep the exact same structure. You've shown that you can do it. This Tales of the Jedi is the place to tell. I am fully convinced now that we've seen these 6 episodes. Tales of the Jedi is the place to tell that story. Don't even bother with creating a new show for it.
Nope.
Use
Tales of the Jedi.
This structure that you've created. It's perfect. Perfect.
Yep. So I'm looking. I want that to happen. I want Ahsoka stuff to happen a little bit more. Like I know I said I'm okay with it. If they do something else with Ahsoka, let it be post Mando in animation. I'd be okay with that. Let us bring back Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger. Almost forgot his name.
There you go.
Bring them back. Tell some more stories. Yeah. Let's see Zeb. Let's see Sabine. Let's do these things that allow for that to happen.
Yeah, and let me give a shout out to Cal Kestis. If it's too expensive to make a video game, put them in animation. Tales of the Jedi.
Easy.
Heck, I'll even go as far to say, Broom Boy, come on, do it.
Broom Boy. We'll never be done with Broom Boy, will we?
No, we won't. But hey, it sounds overall Tales of the Jedi across the board and talk online everywhere. Everybody's loving Tales of the Jedi. It is definitely worth a watch. It is, in my opinion, top tier Star Wars animation. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic viewing. And I know we talked about this earlier, but even if you haven't potentially seen, and by the time you're listening to this, hopefully you've seen Tales of the Jedi. But if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Tales of the Jedi and you haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels, I still think you should just dive into it. Tales of the Jedi is fantastic, worth the watch. 1,000 thumbs up for me. DJ, any final thoughts on Tales of the Jedi before we close this baby out?
If anything, this should help you at least want to watch Clone Wars if you haven't seen it. And remember that Clone Wars, if you decide to watch Clone Wars, it is not in chronological order. So do yourself a favor and look up the correct chronological order on Star Wars's website. You can just Google Clone Wars, chronological order. It'll pop right up. I find it all the time because I always forget. Watch it, and I promise you will not regret it. Season 1's rough to get through. That's how most TV shows are. So just deal with that. You'll be fine. It's good stuff from there on out. You'll be completely in the loop, and then watch Tales of the Jedi and then watch Rebels. Yeah. It'll all make sense. Other than that,
all of that before the Ahsoka series, because then you'll really feel it.
And in addition to that, make sure you subscribe to Mando Talk on YouTube.
There you go. There you go. That's a great plug for more content. Andor breakdowns, YouTube shorts, reactions, trailer reactions, all focused on Star Wars. That is something that I want to make sure I make clear to our podcast listeners. The Mando Talk YouTube channel from here on out is really going to shine more focused on Star Wars. I know we occasionally do some other things to share love for other franchises. That's fantastic. We'll continue to do that here and there, but the Mando Talk YouTube channel is Star Wars focused. So go check that out. If you love Star Wars, if you're listening to this pod at this point, that means you do. So you want to check out that YouTube channel. Link will be down in the description. And we appreciate you listening, whatever platform that you're hearing our lovely voices. Thank you so much. Rate us 5 stars, thumbs up, all the things, all the different things. Do it for us. And subscribe on whatever platform, follow whatever platform, whatever the phrase is on wherever you're listening, do it. Just like he said, like DJ said earlier, click the button.
Click all the buttons. Click every button.
Just do it
all. Except the red one, unless it says subscribe.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. Well, it's time for us to get out of here. The next time that you hear from me will be an Andor episode 8 breakdown for sure. Other than that, the next time that you hear from me will I'll continue to do as many of these episode breakdowns for Andor that I can until my baby Padawan arrives, and who knows what I'll be able to do. So we'll get it figured out. But Mando Talk will continue to crank out the content. And yeah, speaking of Mando Talk, The Mandalorian's coming soon. I cannot wait. I'm already starting to think about it. I'm already starting to think about my rewatching plans for The Mandalorian season 1 and season 2. And I'm already starting to formulate an idea to bring that rewatching plan to the podcast episodes. So
there you go.
Make sure you stick around. We're really fixing to put the Mando back in Mando Talk, and I cannot wait, baby. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Time to get out of here. Unless you have anything else you want to say, DJ. I'm just hyping this up like crazy.
Hype it.
Hey,
I will say prayers to you and your lovely wife, and hopefully everything goes well for the family as well, because I know it's a stressful time. Been there, and it's tough stuff. But no, other than that, thank y'all for checking out the show. I have another show I started with some friends called Cinematic Theology, where we look at any kind of movie from just a biblical worldview. And that may sound different to you. If that is the case, come hit me up on Twitter or listen to our show. It's great.
Check it out.
And at some point, Caleb is going to come on the show. We just have to we got to pick the right movie and have the right discussion and go from there.
Ooh, that's exciting.
I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be. All I know that much. And then, of course, follow at Rebel Scum Texan on Twitter, unless Elon Musk shuts it down, and I will start an Instagram page. So there's that.
There you go. Well, in the event that Twitter shuts down, you can find at Mando Talk anywhere else too. So
that's true. That's true.
All right, let's get out of here. Thank you so much for your support. We'll catch you on the next episode. And as always, we have spoken.